Billionaire's paralyzed daughter cried nonstop, until a poor black girl did something unthinkable. Lisa Salmon stood quietly at the doorway, her heart pounding. Inside the large bedroom, 6-year-old Cassie Armstrong sat in her custom wheelchair, staring out the window. Her blonde hair was tangled, her pink nightgown damp with tears. She had been crying for 4 weeks straight. Ralph Armstrong, a billionaire in a wrinkled business suit, stood frozen near the door. His daughter hadn't spoken a word in weeks. Around the room, expensive doctors and therapists watched helplessly. Without waiting for permission, 10-year-old Lisa, her faded purple t-shirt hanging loosely, her jeans worn at the knees, walked straight to the wheelchair. She knelt beside Cassie and spoke softly. "I see you looking out that window every day," she said. "What are you looking for?" The crying stopped. The room went silent. Cassie slowly turned her head. Her small voice trembled. "My swing. Mommy pushed me every day. Now it just sits there empty." Ralph's eyes widened. His daughter had spoken, to a stranger, a poor girl no one expected could help. How did a 10-year-old child succeed where the world's best experts failed? Tell us where you're watching from and subscribe. Tomorrow's story will move you even deeper. 6 months before the day Lisa walked into that room, the Armstrong family looked like the picture of happiness. Ralph Armstrong, a confident 36-year-old tech billionaire, had everything he'd ever dreamed of: a thriving company, a loving wife named Jennifer, and their 6-year-old daughter Cassie, who was the light of his world. Every morning, Cassie would run through the grand hallways in her pink ballet outfit, her hair in a neat bun, her laughter filling every corner of the mansion. Jennifer was her constant companion, patient and warm, always making sure Cassie's childhood stayed simple despite their wealth. After ballet class every afternoon, Jennifer would take her to the backyard swing. The two of them would spend hours there, Cassie soaring through the air, Jennifer smiling up at her with the ease of a mother who believed nothing bad could ever touch her family. That belief shattered on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Jennifer's car moved steadily through the intersection, Cassie in the back seat still humming her recital song. The light was green. Across the street, a truck swerved into view, speeding past the red light. Cassie had just lifted her head when the crash came. A deafening sound of metal tearing. Screams. Glass shattering. Then silence. When the emergency workers pulled them out, Jennifer was already gone. Cassie was unconscious, her small body limp. Ralph got the call while in a board meeting at Armstrong Tech. The room spun when he heard the words "serious accident." He dropped everything and rushed to the hospital. Hours passed in a blur of flashing lights, voices, and white walls. When the surgeon finally came out, Ralph could barely stand. The doctor spoke softly, but the words struck like a hammer. "Your wife didn't make it. And your daughter's spinal cord is completely severed at the T12 level. She won't walk again." Ralph refused to believe it. "No. There must be something else you can do. Surgery, stem cells, anything, name your price." The doctor's expression didn't change. "I'm sorry, Mr. Armstrong. Her spinal cord is fully damaged. She'll need lifelong care." Ralph staggered to the window, pressing his hands against the cold glass. Outside, the city lights glimmered like they were mocking him. How could all his success, all his money, fail to protect the two people he loved most? When Cassie woke up the next day, her first words were faint. "Daddy? Where's Mommy?" Ralph froze. No one had told her yet. He sat beside her, his voice breaking as he whispered, She's gone, sweetheart." Cassie blinked. "Gone where?" Ralph's throat tightened. "To heaven." There was a long pause. Then, in a trembling voice, Cassie asked, "When is she coming back?" The nurse had to leave the room in tears. Over the next few weeks, Ralph threw every resource he had at the problem. He paid for the best surgeons in the country, flew in specialists from Europe, and turned their mansion into a rehabilitation center. Every room was fitted with ramps, lifts, and high-end therapy equipment. He even funded new research programs hoping someone, somewhere, could find a cure. But no amount of technology or money could restore what Cassie had lost. The laughter that once filled their home was gone. Her ballet shoes sat untouched in a corner. The swing in the backyard, her favorite spot, hung motionless in the wind. Cassie's personality changed. She stopped talking. She refused to look anyone in the eye. When nurses tried to move her, she cried until they left. The physical pain faded, but the emotional one deepened. Every night, Ralph would stand outside her room, listening to her muffled sobs, unable to step inside because he didn't know what to say. He tried therapy sessions with child psychologists. He tried bringing in other children to visit her. Nothing worked. Cassie had built a wall that no one could break through. Ralph began to change too. The cheerful, confident man became distant. He worked longer hours, convincing himself that building his company's next innovation might somehow make the pain bearable. He stopped eating properly, barely slept, and started showing up at board meetings looking lost. At night, when he did sit by Cassie's bed, she wouldn't look at him. She would just whisper, "I want mommy." Sometimes, she'd stare out the window toward the swing set, the last place she'd felt safe. The nurses said she often cried for hours without stopping. For weeks later, her tears still hadn't stopped. Ralph didn't know it yet, but that swing would become the key to everything, the silent symbol of the life Cassie had lost and the bridge to the miracle neither of them expected. Because months later, a 10-year-old girl named Lisa would walk into their world and with one simple question, reach Cassie in a way no one else could. Across the city, far from marble floors and private elevators, Denise Salmon sat at a wobbly kitchen table in a cramped two-bedroom apartment. The wallpaper was peeling, the refrigerator hummed too loudly, and the ceiling fan clicked with every turn. It wasn't much, but it was home, for her and her 10-year-old daughter Lisa. Denise had worked for 6 years as a certified physical therapy assistant at the community hospital. She loved her job, loved helping people heal and regain control of their bodies. But that all ended 3 weeks ago. The hospital's director had called her into the office with a forced smile and a stack of pink folders. "Budget cuts," he'd said. "We're letting some of the staff go." Denise knew what that meant. She had seen the pattern: who was kept, who was let go. The ones who looked like her always left first. She'd swallowed her pride, nodded, and packed her things. That night, she came home with a strained smile and told Lisa everything would be fine. But the truth was different. Rent was due, and the bills were stacking up. Lisa had watched her mother's quiet worry with the sharp awareness only children in hard times develop. She didn't complain about missing lunch money or wearing the same shoes for another school term. She just tried to help. But this wasn't the first time their lives had been shaken. 3 years earlier, Lisa's father, Samuel Salmon, had fallen from scaffolding at a construction site. One second he'd been shouting to a coworker, the next he was lying on the ground, unable to move. The doctors called it a spinal cord injury, T10 incomplete. He'd never walk again. Lisa had been 7 when everything changed. She remembered the wheelchair arriving, the way the apartment had to be rearranged, and the quiet frustration that filled the air. But she also remembered her father's strength. Samuel refused to give up. He'd learned how to use his wheelchair, how to cook from a seated position, how to adjust. But there were dark days, too, days when the pain medication barely helped, when the frustration became too heavy. Lisa had learned to help in small ways. She fetched things he couldn't reach, checked for pressure sores, and learned how to read the signs of discomfort in his face. At first, Denise tried to keep her away from the hardest parts. But Lisa insisted. "I want to help Daddy," she'd said. Samuel used to smile at her and say, "Paralyzed people aren't broken, baby. We're just living differently. Never forget that." Those words became part of Lisa. She saw her father's chair not as a cage, but as proof that even when life takes something away, you can still move forward in a different way. But 2 years later, Samuel's body gave out. He developed an infection that spread too quickly. Denise and Lisa were at his bedside when he took his last breath. Lisa had held his hand, whispering, "It's okay, Daddy. I'll take care of Mom now." After the funeral, Denise worked harder than ever. She picked up double shifts, took on home visits, anything to keep food on the table. But when the layoff came, everything crumbled again. The morning after, Denise sat at the kitchen table with a job placement counselor on the phone. Her voice was tight with exhaustion. "I'll take anything," she said. "I'm certified, I have experience, and I'm willing to travel. I just need steady work." The counselor hesitated before answering. "There is one position open. It's at the Armstrong estate, Ralph Armstrong, the tech billionaire. His daughter was in a bad accident. They're looking for someone to assist with her physical therapy." Denise's hand tightened around the phone. She'd seen the Armstrongs on television, philanthropy events, tech conferences, luxury. "The Armstrong estate? That's way across town," she said. "Yes," the counselor replied. "It's a demanding job, but it pays well. You'd be assisting the lead therapist on site." Denise stared at the small stack of bills on the table. Her rent notice was red-stamped final. "I'll take it," she said quietly. That night, Lisa found her sitting in the dark living room, staring at a photo of Samuel. "Mom, are we okay?" Lisa asked. Denise forced a smile. "We will be. I got a job. A good one." Lisa brightened. "Where?" Denise hesitated. "For a very rich man. His little girl needs help with her therapy." Lisa didn't say anything, but she remembered how hard it had been for her father when people treated him like he wasn't whole. She couldn't stop thinking about that. Later that night, when Denise thought Lisa was asleep, she sat at the edge of the bed and whispered to herself, "I just hope they treat us with respect this time. I can't afford to lose another job. Not now." Lisa stirred but kept her eyes closed. She heard every word. She listened as her mother sighed heavily and whispered a prayer for strength. Lisa's chest tightened. She didn't know who the Armstrongs were, but she decided right then that she'd do whatever it took to help her mom keep that job. Because she'd learned something from her father's wheelchair, from her mother's endless struggle. Sometimes strength doesn't look like power or money. Sometimes it looks like showing up even when everything feels impossible. The next morning, as the sun peeked through the thin curtains, Denise packed her worn briefcase, and Lisa helped carry her things to their old car. The engine coughed twice before starting. Denise looked over at her daughter and said softly, "First day of a new chapter." Lisa nodded, staring out the window as the city buildings blurred by. She had no idea that this job, this single decision, would change both of their lives forever. The old Toyota Corolla coughed and rattled as it pulled up to the tall iron gates of the Armstrong estate. The car looked painfully out of place among the sleek black vehicles parked along the driveway. Denise tightened her hands on the steering wheel and took a deep breath. "We're here," she said quietly. Beside her, Lisa pressed her face against the window, staring in awe. The mansion beyond the gates looked like something out of a movie. White stone walls, glass panels that gleamed in the sun, and gardens so perfectly trimmed they didn't look real. The gate opened automatically, and the car rolled forward, tires crunching on the clean driveway. Lisa's excitement faded when she saw her mother's tense face. "It's beautiful," Lisa whispered. Denise forced a smile. "Yes, baby. But remember, this is work. Keep close to me, and don't wander." When they parked near the front steps, a tall woman in a gray uniform waited for them. Her posture was stiff, her face unreadable. "You must be Ms. Salmon," she said in a clipped tone. "I'm Mrs. Chun, the house manager. Follow me." Lisa grabbed her mother's hand as they stepped inside. The mansion was enormous, marble floors that gleamed like mirrors, a grand staircase curving upward, chandeliers dripping with crystals. But what caught Lisa's attention most wasn't the beauty, it was how silent everything felt. No laughter, no music, just the distant hum of machines somewhere upstairs. Mrs. Chun led them through a long hallway. "Mr. Armstrong is a very private man," she said briskly. "His daughter, Miss Cassie, is under full medical supervision. You are here to assist Dr. Morrison, the lead physical therapist. You will not speak to Mr. Armstrong unless spoken to. You will not disturb Miss Cassie outside of scheduled therapy sessions. Do I make myself clear?" Denise nodded quickly. "Of course, ma'am." Mrs. Chun stopped at a large double door. "This will be your work area." Inside was a therapy room bigger than their entire apartment. Parallel bars, resistance machines, medical beds, and walls lined with mirrors. The smell of disinfectant hung in the air. A tall man in a white coat turned when they entered. "Ah, you must be the new assistant," he said, extending a hand. "Dr. Morrison. Welcome." His smile was professional but distant. "Thank you, doctor," Denise said, shaking his hand. Lisa lingered by the door, taking in everything. There were photos along the far wall, Cassie Armstrong before the accident. In one, she wore a pink tutu, her arms raised gracefully in a ballet pose. In another, she was on a swing in the backyard, her blonde hair flying as her mother laughed behind her. Lisa stared at that photo longer than the others. The joy on Cassie's face reminded her of herself before her father's accident, when life still felt easy. "Lisa," Denise said softly, "stay here for a bit, okay? I'll be in the next room helping Dr. Morrison get set up." Lisa nodded, finding a chair near the corner. Her legs swung quietly as she looked around. Everything in the room was so clean, so polished, it almost didn't feel real. Minutes passed. Then a sound broke the silence. A faint cry. It started soft, like a whimper. Then it grew louder, sharper, heartbroken sobs echoing faintly through the halls. Lisa froze. She knew that sound. It wasn't physical pain, it was something deeper. She had heard that same sound late at night when her father thought no one was awake. It was the sound of someone who felt trapped inside their own life. Lisa's heart started to beat faster. She glanced toward the door. Her mother's voice echoed in her head, "Stay close. Don't wander." But another voice, quieter, older, rose above it. Her father's voice. "Paralyzed people aren't broken, baby. We're just living differently." The crying grew louder. Lisa slid off the chair. She moved quietly through the hallway, following the sound. The mansion seemed endless, one hallway leading to another, every step echoing against the marble. At the top of the staircase, she hesitated. The crying was definitely coming from upstairs. She climbed carefully, her small hand gliding along the smooth railing. As she reached the landing, she saw a door slightly open, soft light spilling out. The crying was coming from there. Lisa peeked inside. The bedroom looked more like a hospital suite. Machines hummed beside a large custom-built wheelchair. There was medical equipment along one wall and a hospital bed beside the window. But what caught Lisa's attention wasn't the room, it was the girl in the chair. Cassie Armstrong sat motionless, her small body trembling with each sob. Her long blonde hair hung loose and tangled, her pale cheeks streaked with tears. She wore a pink nightgown, the same color as the one in the photo downstairs. Her eyes were fixed on something outside, the swing. It swayed gently in the breeze, empty. 3 adults stood nearby, Dr. Morrison, a nurse, and a child psychologist. They spoke softly among themselves, their expressions helpless. "She won't respond to any of us," the nurse whispered. "We tried music therapy again," said the psychologist. "No reaction." Dr. Morrison sighed. "She hasn't spoken a word in weeks. Every time we approach, she just cries harder." Lisa stood frozen at the doorway, her small hands clenched. She didn't know why, but something inside her ached for this girl. She recognized that empty look, the same one her father had carried on his worst days. She looked back toward the stairs. Her mother needed this job. If Mrs. Chun found her wandering around, they could both be in trouble. But Cassie's sobs tore through the silence again. Lisa took a small step forward. Then another. Her heart pounded, but her feet didn't stop. She didn't know what she would do or say, but she knew she couldn't just walk away. Somewhere downstairs, a clock chimed softly, marking the moment that would change everything. Lisa stood frozen for only a second at the doorway. The crying filled the room, raw and trembling. Cassie's shoulders shook with each sob, her fingers gripping the edge of her wheelchair so tightly her knuckles had turned white. 3 adults surrounded her, exchanging helpless looks. None of them noticed Lisa at first. When she finally stepped forward, her small shoes squeaked against the polished floor. Every head turned at once. Dr. Morrison's expression hardened. "Young lady, you can't be in here." Lisa didn't answer. She kept walking, her gaze fixed on Cassie. The nurses exchanged startled looks, unsure what to do. Denise's daughter moved with quiet determination, her ponytail bouncing slightly as she crossed the room. She stopped right in front of Cassie's wheelchair and slowly crouched down so she was at eye level. Cassie's sobs faltered, confusion flickering through her red-rimmed eyes. Lisa's voice came out soft, almost a whisper. "I see you looking out that window every day," she said gently. "What are you looking for?" The air seemed to still. Cassie's crying stuttered to a stop. Her lips trembled as her gaze shifted from the window to the little girl kneeling before her. For the first time in weeks, her eyes weren't lost in the distance. They were focused on someone. Lisa waited, patient and calm. Her expression held no pity, just quiet understanding. Finally, Cassie's voice came out, cracked and uncertain. "The swing," she whispered. "That's where my mom used to push me." Lisa nodded slowly. "She must have pushed you really high, huh?" Cassie's eyes filled again, but this time with something softer. "Every afternoon. She said I could touch the sky if I believed hard enough." Dr. Morrison blinked, speechless. The psychologist lifted a hand to her mouth. None of them had heard Cassie speak since the accident. Before anyone could react, footsteps echoed in the hallway. The door opened sharply. Ralph Armstrong stepped in, his tie loosened, his face tired from a day of meetings that had clearly ended too soon. He froze. There was his daughter, speaking. Actually speaking. "Cassie." His voice was barely audible. "Sweetheart, did you just talk?" Cassie turned her head, startled, then smiled weakly through her tears. "Daddy." The sound of that word hit him like a wave. His briefcase slipped from his hand, thudding softly against the carpet. Lisa glanced up at the tall man in the doorway, sensing his confusion. She didn't know who he was yet, but she saw the emotion flooding his face, the fear, the hope, the disbelief. "Well," Lisa said matter-of-factly, Why don't we go outside to the swing then? The room erupted in alarm. Dr. Morrison shook his head. Absolutely not. She's not ready. The nurse stepped forward quickly. It's not safe. Her muscles can't. But Cassie interrupted, her voice trembling with excitement. You'd take me? Lisa smiled. Sure. If you want to go, I'll go with you. For a moment, nobody moved. Ralph looked between the two girls, the fragile hope lighting up his daughter's face, and the steady calm of the stranger's little girl kneeling before her. Finally, his deep voice broke the silence. Who are you? Lisa hesitated. I'm Lisa, she said simply. My mom works here now. Before Ralph could respond, hurried footsteps approached. Denise rushed into the room, breathless, her eyes wide with panic. Lisa! Oh my God, Mr. Armstrong, I am so sorry. She wasn't supposed to be here. I told her to stay downstairs. Dr. Morrison quickly interjected, Sir, she just came in. We were about to escort her out. But Cassie suddenly reached out, her small hand grabbing Lisa's tightly. Please don't let them send her away, she pleaded, her voice breaking. She's the first person who talked to me like I'm normal. Denise froze. Ralph looked down at their joined hands, torn between outrage and astonishment. His daughter hadn't spoken to anyone in months. The silence stretched. Ralph ran a hand over his face, struggling to compose himself. His world, the careful order of doctors, rules, and sterile hope, was shifting right in front of him. He crouched down beside Cassie's wheelchair, his voice quieter now. Cassie, sweetheart, you really want to go outside? Cassie nodded quickly. With her. He turned to Lisa. You think you can help my daughter? Lisa shook her head. I don't think she needs help, she said simply. I think she just needs someone to treat her like she's still Cassie. Her words hung in the air, disarming in their innocence. Dr. Morrison lowered his eyes. The nurse looked away. Even Denise, trembling beside the doorway, felt something shift inside her. Ralph studied Lisa for a long moment, this small, ordinary girl with a stubborn calmness that somehow reached his daughter when trained professionals could not. He let out a slow breath. All right, he said finally. We'll go to the swing. The staff exchanged worried looks, but no one dared argue. Ralph gently lifted Cassie into his arms, careful and protective. Lisa followed closely, her hand lightly resting on Cassie's blanket. Outside, the afternoon sun was warm, the garden quiet except for the soft rustle of leaves. The swing moved slightly in the breeze, the same one from the photo, still waiting. Ralph set Cassie down carefully. Her feet touched the grass for the first time in months. She reached for the ropes, her hands trembling, and Lisa steadied her gently from behind. Cassie looked up at her father, smiling through tears. See, Daddy? I can still fly. Ralph's throat tightened. He turned away for a second, wiping at his eyes. The swing creaked softly as Lisa gave a gentle push. For the first time since the accident, laughter floated across the Armstrong garden, quiet, uncertain, but real. Denise stood by the doorway, hand over her heart, watching her daughter beside the billionaire's child. Something told her this moment wasn't just healing Cassie, it was changing everything. Ralph looked at Lisa again, truly seeing her now, not as a stranger's child, but as the spark that had brought his little girl back to life. Lisa, he said quietly, thank you. Lisa just smiled. You don't have to thank me, she said. She was already trying. She just needed someone to believe she could. And for the first time in a long while, Ralph Armstrong believed it too. Ralph's voice was steady but held a quiet authority that silenced every protest. Take her outside, he said, his gaze fixed on Cassie. I want to see this. Dr. Morrison blinked in disbelief. Mr. Armstrong, that's against her therapy protocol. Outdoor exposure hasn't been cleared yet. Ralph raised a hand. I said take her outside. The staff froze. No one had ever questioned the medical team before. But today, the rules didn't seem to matter. Lisa stood beside Cassie's chair, her small hands already moving with confidence. It's okay, she said softly, crouching down. We'll go slow, right, Cassie? Cassie nodded timidly, gripping the wheelchair's armrests as if afraid someone would take this moment away. Lisa reached down to check the locks, testing the wheels with practiced care. Denise watched, startled. Her daughter's movements were precise, gentle, learned from years spent helping her late father. Even Dr. Morrison hesitated as Lisa adjusted the footplates. Ralph's eyes lingered on her, noticing the certainty in every small motion. This child wasn't guessing. She knew what she was doing. Lisa smiled at Cassie. All right, let's go on an adventure. The staff reluctantly stepped aside as Lisa began pushing the chair toward the glass doors. Ralph followed silently, his shadow long across the marble floor. Denise walked beside them, nervous but unable to interrupt what felt like something bigger than orders or titles. They moved through the quiet halls, past portraits of the Armstrong family, paintings from a time when laughter echoed through these corridors. Cassie's gaze flicked briefly toward one of her mother smiling in a pale blue dress, her hand resting on the same swing they were walking toward now. Her lips quivered. Lisa leaned close and whispered, she must have loved that swing. Cassie nodded, tears pooling again, but this time not from despair, just memory. As they reached the patio doors, Ralph stepped ahead and pulled them open himself. A rush of warm air filled the space, carrying the scent of freshly cut grass and lilacs. For the first time in months, Cassie felt sunlight touch her face. The backyard stretched out like a private park, wide, green, immaculate. But at the far end, beneath a sprawling oak tree, stood the old swing set. Its wooden beams gleamed faintly, and beside the standard seats was a wider one fitted with harness straps and metal supports. A custom adaptive swing Jennifer had insisted on installing right after Cassie's 5th birthday. Lisa pushed Cassie forward until the wheels met the soft earth. The path ended there. She stopped and knelt again. "Wanna see if we can make it work?" Cassie hesitated. "What if I fall?" Lisa smiled gently. "You won't. I've got you. I promise." Ralph watched from the patio, his jaw tense. He wanted to intervene, his every instinct screamed to keep control, but something in Cassie's eyes stopped him. There was a spark there, small but alive. Lisa inspected the swing, studying the harness and latch system. It wasn't complicated, but it needed someone who understood weight shifts and balance. She adjusted the straps, murmuring softly so Cassie would know every step. "Okay, so I'll move you forward just a little," she said. "You tell me if anything feels weird or hurts, all right?" Cassie nodded, biting her lip. Lisa unlocked the wheelchair's footrests, braced her feet, and guided Cassie's movements with care that came from memory, her father's voice echoing in her head, "Always let them lead, baby. It's their body, not yours. Ready?" Lisa asked. Cassie's voice was small. "Ready." The transfer was slow but smooth. Lisa guided Cassie into the seat, securing the harness around her waist and shoulders. When she let go, Cassie sat upright, nervous, trembling, but seated in her mother's swing. Ralph exhaled, barely realizing he'd been holding his breath. Lisa stepped behind the swing and placed her hands gently on the ropes. "You tell me when you want to go higher, okay?" Cassie nodded. The first push was barely a sway. The swing creaked softly. Cassie's hands clenched the ropes. "A little higher," she said after a moment. Lisa pushed again. Sunlight broke through the tree branches, flickering across Cassie's face as she moved back and forth. Her lips curved upward. A sound escaped her, a small broken laugh, but unmistakably real. Lisa smiled through her own tears. "There it is," she whispered. Cassie's voice grew steadier with each motion. "Mommy used to push me every morning before school," she said softly. She said if I went high enough, I could touch heaven. Lisa didn't rush to comfort her. She just kept pushing, steady and quiet. After a while, Lisa spoke. "My dad was in a wheelchair," she said. "He used to tell me it doesn't change who you are. You're still you, even if your legs don't listen anymore." Cassie turned her head slightly, her voice barely above the wind. "Is he gone?" Lisa nodded. "Yeah. But I still feel him. Especially when I help someone like you." Cassie was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I miss her so much. Sometimes I feel like I died too." Lisa's hands paused for a heartbeat on the ropes. Then she started pushing again, slow and gentle. "You didn't," she said softly. "You're right here. And she'd want you to live." From the patio, Ralph's hand covered his mouth. The sunlight blurred as tears filled his eyes. For months, he'd begged doctors to fix her body, but this little girl had somehow reached her heart. Cassie's laughter grew freer, brighter. Even the wind seemed to join in. The sound drifted across the garden, fragile and beautiful. After 20 minutes, Lisa noticed Cassie's breathing slow. "Tired?" she asked. Cassie nodded, smiling weakly. "That was perfect." Lisa steadied the swing and began the careful transfer back to the wheelchair. Cassie didn't flinch this time. She trusted her completely. As the wheels began to roll back toward the house, Cassie looked over her shoulder one last time. "Can Lisa come back tomorrow?" she asked. Everyone stopped walking. Ralph blinked, wiping his eyes. Lisa looked at him uncertainly. Denise held her breath. Ralph's voice came out rough but sincere. "If she wants to," he said. Cassie's smile returned, wide, pure, full of light. Lisa squeezed her hand gently. "I'll be here," she said. Ralph looked at the two of them, his fragile daughter and the brave child who had brought her back, and for the first time in a long while, he felt something like hope. The swing creaked softly behind them as they went inside, but its echo would stay with all of them long after that afternoon ended. That evening, the mansion was unusually quiet. The sunset bled orange through the tall windows, laying soft light across the floor where Cassie's wheelchair sat parked beside the couch. Ralph stood in his study, staring out over the lawn where the swing still moved gently in the wind. A knock came at the door. Denise entered, nervously wringing her hands. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Armstrong?" Ralph turned. His eyes were tired, but calmer than she'd seen them before. "Yes, Denise. Please sit." She perched on the edge of the leather chair. He hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Your daughter, Lisa. She's special." Denise smiled faintly, unsure if that was a compliment or the start of a problem. "She's got a good heart. Sometimes too bold for her own good." Ralph gave a small, almost reluctant smile. "She did something no one else could." Cassie spoke to her. She smiled. "She hasn't done that in months." Denise's shoulders relaxed a little. "Lisa's been through a lot. Maybe she just understands." Ralph nodded. "Exactly. Which is why I want to make an offer. I'd like Lisa to come here every day after school. Spend time with Cassie. Play, talk, whatever it is she does that works. I'll make sure she's paid fairly for her time." Denise's expression shifted. Mr. Armstrong, I don't know. She's only 10. She has homework, school, she's just a child. I understand, Ralph said quickly. But Cassie responds to her. You saw it yourself. Denise hesitated, twisting her fingers together. It's not just that. We come from very different worlds. I don't want her to feel out of place here, or worse, like she's being used because she's good with your daughter. Ralph looked genuinely moved. I wouldn't let that happen. I promise. He paused, his voice dropping lower. Your daughter did in 30 minutes what my team couldn't do in a month. I've spent money, time, resources, and nothing reached her. Lisa did. Denise's eyes softened. She could see how much he meant it. Please think about it, Ralph said. Cassie asked for her by name. Later that night, Lisa sat cross-legged on her small bed, listening through the thin walls as her mother spoke softly on the phone. She caught pieces, extra hours, after school, wealthy family. When Denise came into the room, Lisa's face was already glowing with curiosity. Mom, did Mr. Armstrong say something about me? Denise sighed, sitting beside her. He wants you to come after school. To help Cassie. Every day. Lisa gasped. Really? Can I? Denise frowned. It's not that simple, baby. You have school, and it's a long drive. Plus, this is their world, not ours. Lisa shook her head eagerly. Mom, I can help her. I know I can. You saw her today, she smiled. Please, let me keep helping. Denise hesitated, torn between pride and worry. I'll do my homework there, Lisa continued quickly. You'll be with me anyway, right? Please. Denise couldn't help but smile. That same fire had lived in Lisa's father, the kind of heart that refused to walk away when someone was hurting. By the next morning, the arrangement was official. Lisa would come every day from 3 to 6, after school, while Denise assisted the therapy team. Ralph personally met Lisa at the front door that first afternoon. Welcome back, he said, smiling faintly. Cassie's been asking when you'd get here. Lisa grinned. I came as fast as I could. From that day forward, a new rhythm began. The first week unfolded like sunlight breaking through clouds. Each day after school, Lisa arrived with her backpack and a small notebook where she'd jot down Cassie's favorite things. She talked to her about cartoons, school lunch drama, even made jokes about homework. Cassie started to talk back. Short answers at first, then full sentences. During therapy sessions, she worked harder when Lisa was in the room. Dr. Morrison noticed the difference immediately, though he'd never admit it out loud. Cassie tried to lift her arms higher, balance longer, move forward just one more inch if Lisa was cheering her on. One afternoon, Lisa wheeled Cassie out to the patio again. You know, she said with a playful grin, you're faster than you think. Want me to show you a trick my dad taught me? Cassie's eyes widened. What kind of trick? Lisa demonstrated how to spin the wheelchair slowly in place using momentum and hand coordination. Cassie watched in awe. Your turn, Lisa said, grinning. Cassie laughed nervously. I'll fall. No, you won't. I've got you. It took 3 tries, but when Cassie finally made the turn, her laughter rang out across the yard. From his study window, Ralph watched, barely breathing. Each sound from his daughter, a laugh, a shout, even frustration, felt like life returning to her body. As days passed, Lisa helped Cassie reclaim small pieces of independence. She encouraged her to brush her own hair, even when the brush slipped. She helped her pick her clothes instead of letting the staff choose. One afternoon, Lisa challenged her gently. You can transfer yourself from the chair to the bed, right? Cassie frowned. Not yet. You've got strong arms, Lisa said. Let's try together. It was clumsy at first. Cassie struggled, nearly slipped, but Lisa steadied her. When Cassie finally made it onto the bed without help, she gasped in disbelief. I did it, she whispered. Lisa grinned. Told you. That night, Denise found Ralph standing silently outside the therapy room. He didn't say anything at first, just watched the girls inside laughing over a spilled cup of juice. She brings something no one else can, Denise said quietly. Ralph nodded. It's not her training. It's her heart. By the end of the month, Cassie was a different child. She started drawing again, asking to go outside, and most surprising of all, participating eagerly in therapy. Ralph saw his daughter come alive again through the eyes of a child who refused to treat her like a patient. One evening, after a long day, Cassie sat by her window with Lisa beside her. The sky was turning gold. Everyone looks at me like I'm broken, Cassie said softly. Like I'll never be normal again. Lisa turned to her. You're not broken. You're just Cassie. That's enough. Cassie blinked hard, her eyes shining. That's why I like you, she whispered. Lisa smiled, resting her chin on her knees. Good. Because I like you too. From outside the door, Ralph quietly stepped back into the hallway, wiping at his eyes. For months he'd searched for a cure. He finally understood. His daughter didn't need fixing. She just needed to be seen. 3 weeks into the arrangement, the Armstrong mansion felt alive again. The hallways once filled with sterile silence now echoed with laughter, music, and the faint squeak of Cassie's wheelchair as she raced Lisa down the corridor. The staff had grown used to the sound, one they hadn't heard in over a year, a child's joy. Cassie's transformation was undeniable. She was eating on her own, joining therapy sessions without protest, and had even started asking questions about school. Her smile had returned, shy but real. And every evening, Ralph would pause outside her door, listening to her giggle as Lisa told another ridiculous story about life outside the mansion walls. But not everyone shared his joy. It started with a call one afternoon, while Ralph was in his office reviewing quarterly reports. The voice on the line was calm, measured, but carried an edge of concern. Mr. Armstrong, it's Dr. Morrison. Yes, doctor. How's Cassie doing today? A pause. That's actually why I'm calling. We need to talk about boundaries. Ralph frowned. Boundaries. With your permission, we convened a brief meeting this morning, myself, Mrs. Chun, and the therapy board. We're concerned that your daughter's progress might be, well, rooted in an unprofessional attachment. Ralph's brow furrowed. Unprofessional. Cassie's emotional dependence on the girl. Lisa. It's becoming significant. She refuses to begin sessions until the child arrives. She's associating all motivation with one person. That's medically unsound. Ralph leaned back in his chair, silent. Dr. Morrison continued, in our professional view, this isn't sustainable progress. It's substitution. When Lisa leaves, and she will, Cassie could regress even worse than before. We recommend ending her visits immediately. For a long moment, Ralph said nothing. His hand tightened around the phone. Thank you, doctor. I'll consider it. By evening, a formal letter from the board arrived on his desk, stamped and signed. Therapeutic integrity compromised due to personal attachment. Immediate cessation advised. As if that weren't enough, Mrs. Chun appeared at his door the next morning, her tone clipped and precise. Mr. Armstrong, if I may, there's another issue. The help's daughter is overstepping. She's giving the staff instructions, rearranging schedules, taking Cassie outdoors unsupervised. Ralph looked up sharply. Unsure what your point is, Mrs. Chun. My point, sir, is that familiarity breeds chaos. This isn't a playground. It's your daughter's recovery facility. The line between family and staff must be restored. Her words lingered long after she left. That night, Ralph sat alone in his study, turning his glasses over in his hands. Every instinct as a father told him to trust what he saw, Cassie's light returning. But the professionals, the ones he'd hired, the ones he trusted, warned him that this bond could backfire. When Denise knocked softly at his door, he already knew what he had to say. Denise, he began quietly, I need to talk to you about Lisa. Her posture stiffened. Is something wrong? No. Not exactly. He sighed. The doctors believe Cassie's becoming too dependent. They've advised me to end the arrangement. Denise blinked, absorbing the words. You're ending it? He nodded. It's for Cassie's long-term stability. At least, that's what they say. Denise took a breath, trying to stay professional. I understand, sir. I really do. But Lisa, she's going to take this hard. I know. His voice was soft. Please tell her I'm grateful. She did more than anyone else could. Denise's throat tightened. I'll tell her. The next afternoon, Lisa waited by the gate, backpack slung over her shoulder, excitement buzzing in her chest. But when her mother's car pulled up, she knew something was wrong from the look on Denise's face. Mom, she asked. What happened? Denise's voice broke. Honey, you can't go back. Mr. Armstrong ended the visits. Lisa froze. What? Why? Cassie needs me. I know, sweetheart. But it's not our choice. Tears welled in Lisa's eyes. That's not fair. She's finally happy. Why are they doing this? Denise pulled her into a hug. Sometimes grown-ups make decisions thinking they're helping, even when it hurts. The next day, Lisa returned to the mansion one last time to say goodbye. Cassie's face lit up when she saw her, then crumpled at the sight of Lisa's tearful expression. Why are you crying? Cassie asked, her voice trembling. Lisa knelt beside her wheelchair. I can't come anymore, Cassie. Mr. Armstrong thinks it's better for you to keep doing therapy without me. Cassie's lower lip quivered. But, you said you'd help me get back to the swing. Lisa swallowed hard. I know. I'm sorry. Cassie reached for her hand. Please don't go. Lisa squeezed back, tears spilling freely. You're stronger than you think. You don't need me, you've got this, okay? Cassie's response was only a broken whisper, no, I don't. That night, Ralph heard his daughter crying through the walls. It started as a whimper, then a scream. By morning, she had stopped speaking again. Days passed. Cassie refused food, ignored her therapists, and stared out the window for hours. Dr. Morrison noted the expected regression, but Ralph couldn't shake the guilt clawing at his chest. A week later, his sister Margaret arrived from the city, bringing her usual sharp opinions. This is what happens when you let the help get too familiar, she said over dinner. You blur the lines, and the child gets confused. Honestly, Ralph, what were you thinking? He didn't respond. He couldn't. That night, the mansion fell into uneasy quiet. The staff retired, the lights dimmed. But somewhere around midnight, Ralph woke to an unnatural silence. The baby monitor on his desk wasn't picking up Cassie's soft breathing. He rushed upstairs. The bed was empty. Cassie. His voice echoed down the corridor. Cassie. Within minutes, the house erupted in panic. Security spread out across the estate, flashlights slicing through the dark gardens. Mrs. Chun called the police, her voice shaking. Then, a faint sound came from a therapy room, scraping, labored breathing. Ralph ran toward it. He found her near the window, body trembling, dragging herself across the floor. The wheelchair was overturned behind her. Cassie. He dropped to his knees, scooping her into his arms. "Oh God, sweetheart, what are you doing?" Through tears, she gasped, "I wanted to get to the swing. Lisa always took me to the swing." Ralph's heart broke clean in two. Dr. Morrison rushed in moments later, kneeling to check her pulse. "She could have seriously injured herself," he said sharply. "This proves our point. Her dependency is unhealthy." Ralph looked down at his daughter, her small hands gripping his shirt, her eyes wild with desperation. He saw no dependency. He saw longing, will, life. He looked up, his voice low but firm. "No, doctor. This proves you were wrong." He stood, cradling Cassie gently. She wasn't dependent. She was fighting to live again. As Dr. Morrison started to protest, Ralph cut him off. "Get Lisa back here. Now. I don't care what time it is." The mansion filled with movement again, phones ringing, engines starting. But through it all, Ralph held Cassie close, whispering, "It's okay, baby. We'll bring her back. I promise." The mansion was still humming with quiet chaos after Cassie's fall when Ralph found Denise waiting in the foyer. She had arrived minutes after his call, still in her nightclothes, face pale with worry. Cassie was safe, resting under light sedation, but the weight of what had just happened hung thick in the air. Ralph leaned against the doorway, exhaustion pulling at his features. She could have died trying to get to that swing. Denise nodded softly. "Because she missed Lisa." He let out a broken sigh. "I almost killed my daughter's spirit because I listened to people who saw her as a patient, not a person." His voice cracked on the word person. "That little girl, your daughter, was the first one to remind Cassie she's still alive." For the first time since Denise began working there, he looked not like a CEO or a man of influence, but like a father stripped of all certainty. "I don't care what the doctors say," he continued quietly. "We're doing this differently. Denise. I'd like to make you head of Cassie's care team. You know her rhythms, what helps and what doesn't. And Lisa," he hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Lisa's her official companion now. Paid, of course. But more than that, she'll be treated as part of the family." Tears filled Denise's eyes. "Mr. Armstrong, Ralph, thank you. You won't regret this." The next morning, before dawn had even colored the sky, a car pulled up to the Armstrong gates. Lisa stepped out, clutching her backpack, unsure if she was dreaming. Mrs. Chin met her at the door, still visibly flustered, but Ralph's firm tone from the night before had silenced any protest. "Go on up, Lisa," she said stiffly. "She's awake." Cassie sat propped up in bed when Lisa entered. Her eyes widened in disbelief before joy took over completely. "Lisa." Lisa rushed to her, hugging her gently but fiercely. "I'm back," she whispered. "I'm not going anywhere again." Cassie clung to her, crying into her shoulder. Ralph stood in the doorway, his eyes glistening as he watched his daughter come back to life for the second time. That afternoon, for the first time in weeks, Cassie asked to go outside. Ralph joined them at the swing set, standing awkwardly at first as Lisa secured the straps and adjusted the seat. Cassie grinned at him mischievously. "Daddy, Lisa says this thing isn't scary. You just have to trust the wheels." He chuckled. "Is that so?" "Aha." She nodded, lifting her hands proudly off the armrests for a brief moment. "It's not a prison, it's just wheels." The words hit him harder than any boardroom speech or therapy report. From that day, Ralph made it a ritual to join their sessions. Sometimes he pushed Cassie himself while Lisa sat nearby doing homework. Other times, he simply watched from the patio, coffee in hand, listening to their laughter echo through the garden, the sound of healing. 6 months later, Cassie's world had changed completely. She'd been accepted into a new integrated school, one Lisa had helped research. The morning of her first day, she sat in her chair by the door, wearing her favorite sunflower dress, hair in 2 neat braids. "You nervous?" Lisa teased, adjusting her backpack. Cassie grinned. "A little. But if I can survive your terrible jokes, I can survive school." The first weeks were a mix of challenges and victories. Cassie learned how to navigate the halls independently, make friends, and even joined an adaptive sports team that Lisa had found for her. Every evening, Ralph listened to her chatter about her new friends, her teachers, and the way kids didn't treat her like porcelain. But one evening, Cassie surprised him. Over dinner, she looked up and said, "Daddy, can I visit Lisa's neighborhood?" Ralph raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "I want to see where she lives. And maybe meet her friends." It took planning, security, scheduling, transportation, but a week later, they went. Lisa was waiting proudly outside her modest apartment complex. The contrast between her world and the Armstrong estate was stark, but Cassie didn't seem to notice. She was too busy taking everything in. The kids playing with makeshift soccer balls, the laughter, the energy. Lisa introduced her to a small group of children, some with makeshift crutches, others with visible disabilities. One little boy shyly showed Cassie his broken wheelchair, missing a wheel entirely. Cassie's smile faded. "You don't have another one?" He shook his head. "They said it's too expensive." That night, on the ride home, Cassie was quiet. When they pulled up to the mansion, she looked at her father with the seriousness of someone far older than her years. "Daddy," she said softly, "we should help them." Ralph blinked. "Help who?" "The kids from Lisa's neighborhood. They need chairs, ramps, therapy. You always say we have more than enough. So, maybe we can share." Ralph stared at her, stunned by the purity of her heart. Slowly, he smiled. "You know what, sweetheart? That's exactly what we'll do." Within months, the Armstrong Adaptive Foundation was born, providing therapy, mobility equipment, and educational support for families who couldn't afford it. Lisa and Cassie became its youngest ambassadors, giving school talks and appearing at local events. Cassie even returned to the community center to help distribute wheelchairs. A year later, on Cassie's 7th birthday, the Armstrong Garden looked nothing like before. It wasn't filled with executives or investors, it was filled with laughter. Kids from every background played together, running, wheeling, and swinging. Cassie's wheelchair sparkled with ribbons, Lisa by her side, as she rolled up to a small stage set up near the swing set. She tapped the microphone shyly, then smiled at the crowd. "Last year, I didn't think I'd ever laugh again. But then I met Lisa. She taught me that being paralyzed doesn't mean being powerless. It just means I do things differently. And that's okay." Applause rippled through the garden. Lisa leaned into the mic with a grin. "And Cassie taught me that helping someone else is the best way to honor the people we've lost. She's the bravest friend I've ever had." The crowd cheered, parents wiping away tears. Ralph stood off to the side, Denise beside him. He watched the 2 girls, his daughter and the girl who'd saved her, laughing together, the swing creaking softly behind them. He whispered to Denise, "I used to think success was about control. Turns out, it's about connection." Denise smiled gently. Sometimes it takes a child to remind us. As the party wound down, the last rays of sunset stretched across the garden. Lisa stood behind Cassie's wheelchair, giving her a final push toward the swing. Cassie's laughter rang through the air as the chair rocked gently, her hair catching the light. Ralph watched them, gratitude softening every line of his face. Beside him, Denise rested a hand on his arm. Two parents, worlds apart, bound by their daughter's courage. Because the unthinkable thing Lisa did wasn't just taking Cassie to a swing, it was seeing past the chair to the girl who still wanted to fly. And in doing so, she helped everyone around her remember what it truly means to live. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll away. Take a moment to hit that subscribe button and tell us where you're watching from. Every comment, every share, and every new subscriber helps us keep bringing you stories that remind us of the power of compassion, courage, and second chances. Tomorrow, we're bringing you another emotional story that will open your heart and stay with you long after the screen fades. You won't want to miss it. Your support means the world to us. It helps us continue sharing stories that prove one act of kindness can truly change everything. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button now, turn on notifications, and join our growing community of people who still believe in hope.